guys, this is Nate. Right now I'm with my dad, my brother, and my son. We decided to go fishing on Memorial Day. It is Memorial Day right now. Happy Memorial Day. The unofficial start of summer. That's very important. We'll get to that later. But we went to the Rio San Antonio Wilderness, which is one of New Mexico's newest wilderness areas. It was established in 2019. We came here fishing, did not get lucky. We're not even sure there's any fish in this river. There was basically no information about this wilderness online, just basic directions, and that was it. It is the unofficial start of summer, Memorial Day weekend, and it is, when this video airs, it will be the start of astronomic summer in late June. And if you follow this channel, you know that that means, of course, it is hashtag Lager Summer 2024. Since the first summer I've been doing the backcountry beer reviews, I only review lager beers during the period of summer. And this is a very special beer review. It is number 100. I've done 100 of these. But what we're gonna do for today's video is, it is going to be a new Mexican lager extravaganza. So I went to the Total Wine and I got every single new Mexican lager that I could find. And we're gonna taste them all. We're gonna open, I found 6 of them. I did my homework and there was only one brewery that had a canned Mexican lager that I could only get at the brewery, and I did not manage to go there. I went to Albuquerque twice in the past couple of weeks, but both times were early in the day before the brewery opened. I'm also only restricting myself to pale Mexican lagers. We're not doing dark Mexican lagers, though that would open up things a little bit. First off, we have the most interesting lager in the world by Novo Brewing in Corrales. Is a Mexican style lager. They do actually make a version of this that is pre-made with lime and salt, I think. Haven't tried that one. I've had this one, I think, a couple times, but not in the last couple years. Obviously, you know, if you remember the Dos Equis Most Interesting Man in the World commercial from like the early 2010s, late 2000s, this is definitely a play on that in name. Another familiar favorite when it comes to breweries, La Cumbre Brewing in Albuquerque, New Mexico. This is their Azulito Blue Corn Mexican Lager. They do make a dark version of the Azulito. That is the pale version. Now we have the New Mexican Lager by Tractor Brewing Company. Okay, for another familiar favorite, we have Pepe Loco by Santa Fe Brewing, of course in Santa Fe, New Mexico. We have another familiar favorite, Marble Brewing Company, their Cerveza. It is a Mexican style lager. I think they make a light version of this. And then last one, this maybe should have an asterisk on it, is the Steelbender Brewyard Compa Blue Corn Lager. You know, this might not be necessarily a Mexican style lager, but I figure it's made with blue corn. It's just a lager. When I was reading some stuff like beer reviews online, people were saying it was very Mexican lager-like, and it doesn't really say what it is on the can. So we're gonna kind of lump this in, and if it doesn't really taste like a Mexican lager, well, we'll find out pretty soon. So there's our cast of characters. We're gonna hike up out of the canyon, and then we're gonna open all these up. And you know, I don't know if I'm gonna drink all the beer in all the cans. Let's get to it. Let's celebrate 100 beer reviews. And I do wanna also mention before we hike up that I think the very first beer review was actually a failed fishing trip at a river. So we've kind of come full circle here. All right, we've got the beautiful canyon behind us. We climbed out of it. Dad, brother, and kid are heading back to the car. So I'm gonna stop here and maybe, I guess, chug 6 beers. Anyway, beer number 1, Ex Novo, the most interesting lager in the world. Let's take a sip. Already a pretty interesting start. Like I said, I've had this beer before, but I'm not super familiar with it. It's very sweet to me. I'm getting some corn flavor for sure. I'm assuming it's made with corn because it has that corn flavor. It has almost like a creamed corn flavor. Like, it is very sweet to me. I'm getting maybe like honeydew melon, cantaloupe. I am getting maybe a little bit of like noble hop flavor at the finish and the very outset, but not much otherwise. Yeah. So if you haven't caught on, the idea here is Mexican lagers, they're not super complicated. So we're gonna breeze through these pretty quickly, I think. It's very juicy, it's very fruity, it's very sweet. And while I'm getting the corn, it's not quite as corny and dry as I think pale Mexican lagers usually are. Okay, beer number 2, we have La Cumbre's Azulito Blue Corn Mexican Lager. This one, I have to admit, I bought a 4-pack, saw one of them sitting in my fridge the other night, and I opened it up. So I'm pretty familiar with this one. I kind of know what I'm gonna, I kind of know what to expect for this one. Let's take a sip. Wow. I mean, this is night and day versus the Ex Novo one. This is definitely profiling as European continental lager. This is like dry. It has a little bit of residual sweetness, but not much. but I'm getting dryness. I'm getting the corn. I'm getting the, it's a note I get in a lot of beers that have corn in them. Usually more like craft beers, something, not just, you know, not just like an adjunct lager. It's something I call corn husk. If you've ever made like tamales, you kind of know that aroma I'm talking about, or if you've done like corn maze, right? Just that corn husk. I'm getting definitely the hops in this one are coming through. This is another one that I don't think I would ever guess this was a Mexican lager. Like, I know the heritage of Mexican lagers. Your Vienna lager is like the parent of the Mexican lager, if I remember correctly, if I remember my Michael Jackson correctly. And so this is very much to me a continental lager made with corn. It's really interesting. I mean, it's good. I'm definitely getting those hops. I'm getting like the pepperiness, the earthiness of these like European, German noble hops. It's really solid. Definitely night and day versus the Ex-Novo one, right? The Ex-Novo one, that's sweet, that's juicy. This is dry, earthy, spicy, really solid. Beer number 3, we've got Tractor's New Mexican Lager. Let's see what this one's like. I've never had this one as far as I know. This one, I think if it was, I mean, it's kind of warm out right now. I think if this one was really cold, this would be profiling to be more like classic Mexican lager. It has this note that almost like a tannic note. So I don't know if it's got like, obviously I'm not pouring these out in a glass. I don't have one. I'm backpacking or hiking. I don't have access to glassware. This one I think is more like, it's richer. It's, from a malt perspective, it's earthier. It's kind of got those like woodsy notes almost. Like, I'm wondering if they used maybe more of like an amber malt for this, but I don't think so. Just looking at the color, it looks very pale to me. So I don't think it's like an amber lager. It just has that like strong flavor. And I don't think it's like high ABV. It's only 5.3%. So that's kind of interesting. And I'm not really getting much in the way of like hops. Like, certainly you get that hint of hop flavor, but nothing I can really point out and say, oh, it's this. Maybe a little bit of like herbiness, herbaceousness, earthiness, or herbaceousness. Yeah, you get that corn that I think is somewhere between, you know, the corn husk and the sweet corn. It's maybe like a stewed corn. This is like maybe the most like commercial Mexican lagers, but I'd probably be less likely to go back to this than the other two. Still like it though. And it has this like bitter finish. And it's one of those things like, well, is it because I just drank 2 lagers that didn't have a bitter finish, so now I'm drinking this one and think it does? I don't know. Yeah, I probably chugged about 1/3 to half of each of those cans, and I'm feeling it right now. Like, I'm feeling full, and I'm starting to feel a little boozy. We have now Santa Fe Brewing, Pepe Loco, a classic. I've had this one a bunch. Oh my God, I'm falling. I've had this one a bunch, but I can't say I really remember anything about it. I seem to remember it's pretty corny. So let's open it up and taste it. Whoa. And that is not because of packaging or anything. I mean, it was kind of a rough walk, and I had a 3-year-old on my back. It's just everything got shaken up in my backpack. That's the reason why. This is much more like I would think a commercial Mexican lager would be like. This to me is like Tecate. It's definitely got that corny taste. And this has what I would call like the flaked corn taste, right? It's not sweet corn. It's not corn syrup. It's not the maybe more complex like corn husk. This is just like, yeah, corn flakes. I would characterize this one not just by the lack of complexity, which it doesn't have, but also the lack of flavor. And that is not an insult, because I think like that's what a lot of people drink Mexican lagers for, right? You're not drinking a Mexican lager because you want to ruminate while you drink the beer. You want it because you're thirsty, you're hot. You just want a delicious cold beer that takes a lime and salt really well. And this is definitely it. I mean, this is, I'm not gonna overplay how much I like it, because I think it's like, it's a good beer. It's not like amazing for my taste, but it certainly hits all the notes of a commercial Mexican lager for sure. It is pretty inoffensive. Yeah, I mean, this is one that you could probably drink like 8 of at a party and still go to work the next day. Beer number 5, Marble Brewing, Albuquerque, New Mexico, Cerveza. Let's open it up and have a taste. I don't think I've ever had this one. This one to me is more like the Ex-Novo one, where it has like a fruitiness. It has almost like a peachiness, just this pop apricot maybe. This is like, yeah, that's very interesting at the start. It goes away really quickly. This is not a complex beer. Again, this is like This is kind of like the Pepe Loco, where it's a light beer. It's a lighter beer that would be amazing ice cold out of the fridge. I'm definitely getting that like dusty corn taste, so it is more towards like that corn husk flavor than it is the flaked corn flavor. Yeah, I mean, it's not just because I've drunk 4 Mexican lagers already. There's not much really to say about this beer. I think I'm getting a little bit of hop flavor. Again, a little bit of that like pepperiness. Maybe that's kind of what I'm getting with this one that I didn't really get with the Pepe Loco. It was like a pepperiness from the hops. Maybe a little bit of like natural bitterness from the malt, from the caramelization of the malt. All right, Cerveza numero 6. We've got our Compa, which means friend in Spanish. It is the Blue Corn Lager by Steelbender. Let's open it up. I did review Steelbender somewhat recently. I reviewed, what are these ants really want this beer? Well, they're gonna be very lucky because I'm about to pour a ton of it out. Anyway, there we go. Okay, cheers to 100 backcountry beer reviews. It feels like I've drunk 100 beers since I've been sitting here. I am full. I don't think I could fit any more of these beers down my gullet, but I'll say some words at the end. Let's try beer number 6. Wow. Yeah, my immediate reaction for this one was it had this fruitiness, but it wasn't just like a straight fruitiness like the Novo or the Marble beers. This was a fruitiness like with a big vegetal flavor. Like what it struck to me as was like melon rind. It had that like vegetal note, but also that fruitiness that it was very concentrated. It was like a perfume note. So that was really fascinating. I was not expecting to get something like that in this beer. Yeah, there it is again. I mean, that is really unique. There are the 6 beers. You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna mix all of them and see how it tastes. Let's do it. Give me a second. The fast food restaurant, soft drink machine-esque concoction. All 6 of the New Mexico Mexican lagers, all in one can. To quote a very famous figure in the Mexican lager industry, stay thirsty, my friends. Let's try it. El Lagerstein, as I think I will call it. Actually not that bad. I'd probably drink this. Anyway, thanks for joining me. Thanks for 100. Hopefully you don't mind that I indulged myself a little bit by drinking way too much beer than I should have in about a 20-minute span. Cheers. Here's to 100 more backcountry beers for me. See you next time.